Hey everyone, how's it going? It's that nerd Ryan here, and we are going to be finishing off the Kingsman trilogy, honestly, on a low note. I just finished watching it, have my notebook here, and I have to say, the notes got really terrible because the movie got so uninteresting that I didn't even care at a certain point. So I do apologize. I do have gripes actually written in this. That either I was confused by or that, it just made me kind of laugh at how stupid the movie was getting. So I'm not looking down constantly. I got it in front of the camera, so that way I could just see the top of my eyes. So if anything weird goes on, I apologize. But yeah, let's go. So it starts in 1902 in South Africa, where we meet the Duke of Oxford, known as Orlando. He's checking out a military work camp that is actually called a concentration camp in it. And he meets with a general, and it shows that he actually works for the Red Cross, but he had some sort of military history there. During their meeting, there is a attack on the base where Orlando's wife dies and he is injured. We also meet his son Conrad and his sidekick throughout the movie, Sojin, I believe it was pronounced. And he basically vows to protect his son. We cut ahead 18 years or so, and Orlando, or actually 1914, so 12 years ahead, and we meet Orlando and Conrad as they're learning to fly. And the next thing you know, Conrad and St. John are knife fighting. They're training on how to knife fight and everything, while the aide is talking to the Duke. And in that they visit after that they visit the tailor shop of the Kingsmen, where they start learning about certain situations with Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which means that World War I's threat is looming. Orlando is sent to protect Franz Ferdinand, and actually Conrad stops the first assassination. Yet the assassin meets Franz Ferdinand in a corner, like actual history events, and assassinates him. But before that, we are actually introduced to the main villain, who we never see the face of, as well as Rasputin, Lenin, and other famous figures. They're basically played by all-stars for these all-star villains. But we never get to see the head of the puppet master's face until the end, which we'll get to that in a second. They then start to explain why the assassination attempt started the war, and I don't know if it's anything true, but they're saying it was because of basically a sibling rivalry between cousins, and that's what they just needed an excuse to start a war, which does not make sense to me. In this, then Rasputin, or we get parts of the war and everything, and then we learn that the plan is to have Russia pull out so Germany can basically destroy England. In this, Rasputin poisons the king's son to try to pull them out of the war, using it as a vision of why they shouldn't be in the war. This is what I mean, where the notes got spotty because I was getting so sick of it. And then the Duke's general friend dies in a submarine attack by the main villain, and we get the introduction of the pre-Kingsmen after that, where Conrad is allowed into the secret meetings with his father. They start uncovering the conspiracy that everything is connected and there's strings being pulled. They head off to kill Rasputin, and we see some really weird stuff that Rasputin ends up doing to the Duke, which it's funny to see the lizard kind of, lick Voldemort and basically molest Voldemort. It was very, very weird. And then we get to move to him fighting everybody else, which is also weird. Dance sword fighting. That whole scene kind of killed the movie for me, honestly. But they end up drowning him, and that leaves Conrad to be old enough to join the army. And we learn that Germany wants to avoid America's help. Conrad ends up sending a soldier in his place so he could stay at the war, which ends up actually getting him killed. I didn't write that in the notes, so I just wanted to say that now. And the person they switched with's name was Archie, which only has 2 scenes. He doesn't really matter. I wrote it like it was something important. So Conrad volunteers for a suicide mission with 5 other soldiers to retrieve stuff from a spy that was important information that would basically put America in the war. We get this kind of bland yet also kind of cool concept of a like silent knife fight in no man's land that kind of erupts into a louder fight, getting Conrad landing in a hole and finding the spy who is injured. In the morning, he saves the spy and is starting to get attacked, and this brought me to the point of I'm sick of World War I movies having these heroic no man's lands running scenes. All started with Wonder Woman, and then they kept doing it, and it just keeps getting more annoying and more unrealistic. And it really, really irritates me. You could tell in my voice, I'm getting very irritated. So after that, Conrad saves the day, but he says that his name is Archie, not knowing that Archie's best friend is there, who shoots him in the head and kills him. During that, Lenin takes over Russia, having Russia pull out of the war, and we get to see Orlando, the Duke, is now depressed for like 1 scene, and then he decides to avenge his son. They find another spy on the enemy's side and connect her scarf to the enemy's base. They fly in through airplane and parachute, and then we get revealed who the main villain was all along. And I was so confused. I couldn't figure it out because it was a background character that literally probably had like 4 lines ahead of time that nobody really cared about. Which can be done well. I mean, frickin' Scooby-Doo does it all the time. But it was done so poorly in this movie that I was like, wait, who? I don't remember that guy. And they had to do flashbacks to be like, oh yeah, that was the guy. And then he beats him, and then the King's Men become a thing. So that is the entire movie. And I am not only disappointed, but my entire week is ruined, and I want 2 hours back of my life. That was such a boring movie, such a boring ending. Let's go to the rating system. So, for the concept of the story, I thought it was a good concept of the story. I did have to give the story idea a 8 out of 10. However, the script was terrible enough that I gave it a 5 out of 10. I mean, using a sibling rivalry, again, reusing the No Man's Land thing, stuff like that, had to give it a 5 out of 10. Cinematography. There was weird shots where, like, when they were doing flashbacks, it would just be like, I'm in the flashback. And now I'm out of the flashback. And it's like, okay, that's stupid after, like, 2 seconds. So that got a 4 out of 10. Characters. There was a lot of characters I really didn't care about. I think I only really cared about Conrad, and then him getting shot actually got me mad. And that's when I know I really only cared about him. And I didn't want to go too low, so I gave it a 5 out of 10 on characters, because Conrad was a good enough character, and of course they had to kill him off. But then VFX, there was a lot of terrible VFX scenes in this. Just, I mean, the one that stood out was the Duke jumping on the side of the mountain was just god awful. So I had to give that a 4 out of 10. making the overall score a 5.2 out of 10. I do not recommend this movie. Do not watch it. Hopefully they don't follow up on the post-credit scene, which was the second worst post-credit scene I have ever seen in a movie, where they literally set up Adolf Hitler to basically be Thanos. We know he's a bad dude. You don't have to put it like, oh yeah, for you kids out there that follow the MCU, this man is like Thanos. Yeah, he's bad. He's a bad guy. You should know that. Don't look at what he did. Just know that he's like a comical bad guy, like a comic book bad guy. Don't look at it. And it's like, we all know he's a terrible person. You don't have to set up that like, oh yeah, they groomed him to be this terrible person. It's like, no, just stop. Hopefully they follow up with a Kingsman movie that takes place after Kingsman 2, if they were at all. I feel like this movie might have killed the franchise, in all honesty. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on all my social media down below. It's that nerd Ryan telling you, have an amazing day and don't watch this movie.